Welcome to this episode of the Sports Detective Podcast Show. My name is James Williams, and today I am going to tell you why the Alabama Crimson Tide will not make the college football playoff in the year 2024. So, the reason we are talking about this is because Alabama, after getting probably like the biggest regular season win potentially in program history against Georgia, obviously did not have a good second half in that game against Georgia. Then they go to Nashville the very next week, lose to Vanderbilt, and then they almost get upset again at home, this time against South Carolina. And a lot of people were sounding the alarm bells for Alabama after the Vanderbilt loss. I went on this show last week and I said, hey, nothing to worry about here. Georgia came back against them in the second half, but they're a really good team. There's a lot of statistics about teams that get huge wins. They play the next week and they don't cover. So I kind of just said, throw the Vanderbilt tape in the trash and move on from it. And Alabama will be just fine after that Vanderbilt scare. I'm here to tell you that I was flat out wrong. This Alabama team is incredibly flawed. And since the second half started in that Georgia game, this is going to be a completely different team that has a lot of issues. And if these issues continue, Alabama will not make the college football playoff. So since that second half in that Georgia game, or if you even just look in the month of October, Alabama's defense is just horrific in make or break downs. Third down defense, Alabama in the month of October is 126th. Fourth down defense, they're 72nd in all of college football. Since the second half of the Georgia game, they have given up 1,163 yards and 86 points comparatively in all of the, I believe it was 14 quarters. Prior to that, they had only given up 897 yards and 33 points. They have given up points on 14 of their last 28 defensive possessions, including 11 touchdowns and 3 field goals. They currently are having 8 penalties per game, which is 112th nationally. This is a stat I saw on Twitter. They, throughout 2014 to 2023, so that's a 10-year stretch under Nick Saban, Alabama had only given up one 16-play drive. In the whole 2024 season so far, Alabama has given up 3 16-play drives against South Carolina and Vanderbilt, respectively. They had 11 missed tackles in each of those games. In the first 4 games of the season, they were averaging 7.5 pass breakups per game, and they have had just 4 total in the last 2 games of pass breakups. And here's where things get really, really bad if you're Alabama. If you look at their first 6 games and the teams that they played in those first 6 games, all of those teams, other than Georgia, are not good offensively. They are not good offensive teams. Georgia is the only team to be top 50 in yards per game, and they're 28th. Carson Beck is the only quarterback that they played that is top 80 in passing yards per game. Statistically, this defense for Alabama is the worst since 1998. That's 10 years before the Nick Saban era. That is the last time that we can go back in time and say Alabama has been this bad defensively. This is a huge, 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 huge problem. And not to mention, too, that yes, they played bad offenses the first 6 weeks of the year outside of Georgia. Now they're in their next 3 games, 2 of them being hostile road environments against top, 10, 15 teams. I can't remember if Tennessee's still in the top 10. I think they are. Is it 2 top 10 teams? 2 top 11 teams. Tennessee is 11. They are playing the 3 best offenses, or 2 of the 3 best offenses that they've played all year. They're playing Tennessee right now, that is 9th in total offense. LSU, who's 25th in total offense, and they got Missouri, who's 45th in total offenses. I know that Tennessee has kind of struggled the last few weeks. I know that Missouri has kind of had like a weird season, and LSU has had times where they look really good and also times where they look not so good. But comparatively to the previous 5 of the 6 teams that they played previously, including South Carolina and Vanderbilt, who they lost to Vanderbilt, almost lost to South Carolina, these teams are not in the same class. I know Tennessee has struggled, but even if you look at Tennessee and their offense, it's a lot of like an execution issue where Nico at times is missing receivers. He's kind of had some weird turnovers. And you're telling me that 2 years ago, Alabama thought they were going to make the college football playoff or thought they should have made the college football playoff, according to Nick Saban. Their 2 losses were at Tennessee, at LSU. You're playing those 2 teams again 2 times in the next 3 games. We could be looking at a scenario here where Alabama misses the college football playoff if they lose those 2 games. And not to mention too that now I actually think if you're doing for the realistic chances of them making or missing the playoff, Alabama, a 9-3 Alabama team, I think there is like a 87% chance that they still make the college football playoff. But let's say they lose those 2 games. I mean, if you're just looking at the last 3 games of the year, I know Oklahoma's been kind of banged up. I know Auburn's been incredibly, at times, bad and inconsistent this year. Mercer should, knock on wood for Alabama fans, should be a layup for you guys. But, I mean, if you slip up against Vandy, South Carolina, I understand, has like some really good players, especially on the defensive line. But you slip up against those teams, it's not crazy to say that Oklahoma could surprise Alabama. It's not crazy to say that Auburn, who seems to even when they're not good, play Alabama close against like their best version of themselves. So I think we're looking at a scenario here, guys, where this defense, again, maybe if they, force more turnovers, you know, miss a lot less tackles or a lot better in pass coverage, can become better and, win all of these games that they have in front of them. Because I do think, Alabama still with the schedule in front of them today, even with these struggles, still has a good chance of, finishing the season 5-1 or even 6-0 and making the playoff. But if this defense keeps playing this bad, there's no shot. There's no shot that they're making the playoff, because you're telling me they're gonna have to get into these shootouts against all of these teams, and I don't know if they are built for that. They have not. They've had a lot of struggles this season trying to establish the run. I know Ryan Williams is great. I know Jalen Milrow played very good against Georgia and has been like, he wasn't the reason that they were in trouble against South Carolina. Like, there's good parts of this team, but this defense is a huge problem, like all of those numbers that I just laid out for you guys. So this might be like the best thing ever for me. I have been rooting against Alabama ever since I was a formative college football fan. I do not want them to succeed. I do not want them to play well. I want them to be bad. I'm sorry, Alabama fans, for saying that. Look at the team I have behind me. Not necessarily that good, even though we're right behind you guys in the rankings right now. I'm probably going to be wrong. I really like Kalen DeBoer as a head coach. I think that he is one of the best coaches in college football, even though he lost to Vanderbilt, even though South Carolina played Alabama incredibly close this past weekend. But so I'm probably going to be wrong. But if I'm right about this, it's going to be because of the defense, and the defense just playing absolutely terribly against subpar competition. So there you have it again. Alabama fans, don't hate me. Hit me with a sub. I'm usually nice to you guys for the most part. We talk a lot of college football on this show. If you like this video, you like what you saw here today, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Those are the best ways that you can help support this show. It costs you absolutely $0. Feel free to check out other videos on Sports Detective Podcast channel page. We talk NFL, we talk college football. We're getting ready for basketball season. That's going to be starting up here in the next few weeks. And yeah, thank you very much for watching. We'll talk to you next time.